Welcome back to the Swampy Sports Podcast. I am Dylan Marsh. As you can tell, I am not in the 11:30 The Tiger Studios today. This week, I am actually in Oklahoma City visiting a bunch of my college friends, catching up with them, but I'm not going to leave you out on week 8 of college football. And this is what this podcast is all about because we got some huge games coming up this week. JD is not here with us to discuss this week's college football games, but I have his picks right here. He's beat me by 2 picks because last week I was just awful. All my picks were just they're down the drain after the 4th game of the day. So now I'm ready to redeem myself. I'm ready to go out there and I'm going to destroy JD this week, and I am positive about that. So let's get started. I have JD's picks, and so let's go ahead and get started with Thursday night's game between BYU at number 14, Boise State. And me and JD both have Boise State in this game. But leave it be that BYU is not a team you need to overlook. They are never a team you need to overlook. They are always a team that's right there to always challenge you every single game. They always seem to have an upset almost every year or very close to it. But I don't think that's going to happen this week because Boise State is starting to turn back into its former self to where they'll go undefeated throughout the whole year, dominating. Then they'll lose the last game of the year, and this is how it goes in Boise. That's how the potato grows. So I'm taking Boise in this game. But Boise's number 14 in the country. They're 6-0 now. This is being played on the blue turf. You can't go against Boise on the blue turf. So give me Boise. JD's got Boise. So let's move on to the next one real quick. And this is one that's really close to our hearts, like it always is. We're going to go do Oklahoma versus Texas Tech. And I'm not sure how to pick this one. As you know, me and JD are huge Oklahoma fans. So I just don't know how to pick this ball game because I feel very... This is at Texas Tech, and Oklahoma came off a big win to Kansas State. It was a big win. We had a great game against Kansas State. Came off that Texas game really great. So, but this is a game with Texas Tech they have Texas Tech's quarterback Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a stud, as we saw last year against LSU in the Texas Bowl. LSU dominated Texas Tech, but LSU could not stop that quarterback. So when I see that, my thought is he's had a whole offseason to get better. And how's Oklahoma's offense going to deal with him? He dealt with him good last year, barely. But I don't know how this is going to go. Texas Tech 3-3. They are 1-2. Patrick Mahomes 2,500 yards already in the season. That's because of Texas Tech's air raid offense. Let's see. They have put up no less than 44 points every game the Red Raiders have. 69 points against Stephen F. Austin, 68 points against Arizona State, 59 points against Louisiana Tech, 55 against Kansas, 44 against Kansas State, and 38 against Kansas State, and only 17 against West Virginia. West Virginia's defense is solid, which is why West Virginia, if it's not Oklahoma, it's going to be West Virginia who wins the Big 12 this year. But just because Texas Tech is coming off a 48-17 loss to the Mountaineers at home, I'm going to go with Oklahoma because they're coming off a huge win against Kansas State. So, and you have Patrick Mahomes. I will say Patrick Mahomes. I said he had 2,500 yards already on the season, 21 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. For a person who throws the ball that much, great decision-making. Mahomes can run the football very efficiently, and he'll definitely get you the first downs that you need. But Oklahoma's secondary is very iffy. So I think this is going to be a shootout. I don't think there's going to be any defense played, but I'm taking Oklahoma in a close game in Lubbock just because, like I say every year, Baker Mayfield. Every week, Baker Mayfield seems to have just a playmaking ability and just leads that offense. And he hasn't gotten injured in the past two games, so I'm starting to feel a little better about Baker Mayfield. But then also, Samaje Perine is not playing for the Steelers, so the load's going to fall on Joe Mixon, who has 476 yards and only 2 touchdowns. But I think he's not the workhorse, because that's exactly what Samaje Perine is. Samaje Perine is the workhorse that gets us the bruising runs to get first downs on third down and short. And Mixon is the type of guy that just burst open for huge gains. But all the loads got to fall onto Joe Mixon, and the passing game's got to be a lot better. D.D. Westbrook is on a roll with 2 straight over 140 yards since the Texas game. He had 220-something yards. And in this Kansas State game, he had over 140 yards. So I think it's going to be a shootout. So I think Oklahoma's going to win by at least a touchdown. But they'll win by at least a field goal, but no more than a touchdown. I think it's going to be a very close game. Give me Oklahoma in that pick. So, and JD picks Oklahoma to win this ball game. So we're agreeing these first 2 games. So let's go on and move to the next one, which is, hold on a second, here we go. It's North Carolina State at Louisville. And JD has North Carolina State in this game. This is North Carolina State Wolfpack, who's 4-2, 1-1 in the ACC, going up against the number 7 ranked Louisville Cardinals with Lamar Jackson, who's 5-1, 3-1 in the ACC, and ranked number 7 in the country. But I see where JD's coming with this. I see why he's picking North Carolina State. North Carolina State was a shanked chip-in field goal from beating Clemson in Death Valley last week. So you cannot sit there and say that they don't have a chance against Louisville, which they do. But I'm going to disagree with JD just on the sole fact of how well this Louisville defense is and how much respect they don't get, I guess you could say. Because you saw what they did to that Florida State offense. And that Florida State offense is very electrifying. They know how to put up points. They know how to give up yards. They know how to get yards in a football game. But that Louisville defense shut down Dalvin Cook. And I didn't see that coming. I picked Florida State to win that game. But I did not know Louisville's defense was that good. And that's why I'm taking Louisville, not because of Lamar Jackson, not because of the offense. I'm taking them because of their defense. I think their defense will do just fine against North Carolina State. So give me Louisville in that. JD's got North Carolina State. That's a big toss-up right there. I could see North Carolina State upsetting them, because North Carolina State's a good football team, as we saw last week in Death Valley. So let's move on to our next one, which is number 10, Wisconsin at Iowa Hawkeyes. And JD has Iowa in this game, which Iowa is the team that came in very hyped up, I guess you could say, because they were 1 win away from making the playoff last year after they got blew out by Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game. And then they would have gotten blown out by Alabama, just like Michigan State did. But it's still the fact that they had, I think, 12 returning starters. The Iowa Hawkeyes did. And they come back, and now they're 5-2, losing to North Dakota State. North Dakota State's the best Division II school in the whole country. But this is a team who doesn't have Carson Wentz anymore. This is a team that gets so many Division I prospects at Iowa. They have all these corn-fed boys, I guess you could say. And then you lose to North Dakota State. You know, I just don't see the urge to win like it was last year. They just don't have the same magic as they did last year. I guess the senior leadership is not there, I guess you could say. But give me Wisconsin in this game, because I think Clement, their running back, he's going to be a force in this game, because Bart Starr is not going to be playing the Badgers starting quarterback. So give me Clement to be the X factor. Clement has 483 yards and 5 touchdowns. But he's going to be a factor with this Iowa defense, where they have always been a run-dominant defensive team. They've always stopped the run. Iowa has. And I think he's going to be crucial to open up the passing game, to make it easier on Wisconsin to throw the football to win this football game against Iowa. So Clement is my X factor for this game for the Badgers to win by at least 10 points. So I have Wisconsin. JD has Iowa. Let's move on to our next game, which is TCU at number 12, West Virginia. And JD picked West Virginia to win this ball game. And I'm going to disagree with him there too. I'm going to disagree with JD because on the sole fact of I think Kenny Hill will finally show what he can do this year. He's having a decent year. His touchdown to interception ratio is not great. 12 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. But he has over 2,000 yards passing already on the year. And then Hicks, a running back for the Horned Frogs, 479 yards, 7 touchdowns. And West Virginia, 5-0, and it's in Morgantown. But my X factor is going to be the defensive line of the Horned Frogs and how they can get to Howard, the quarterback for Mountaineers, and how fast they can get to him. Because if Chris Bradley, the person who leads, Shreveport's own Chris Bradley, who leads that Horned Frogs defense, and how fast they can get to Howard and make sure he doesn't have time to sit in the pocket and maybe makes him check down every now and then just to give them third down opportunities to stop them on the third down. I think that's going to be the X factor is the defensive line in this game, because I think West Virginia they sling the ball and they balance it out really well. But what they do, they start off slinging the ball, then it opens up the run game. So they need to shut down the pass game first and then lock down on the run game. This is going to be a very good football game. If you want a game that you have no interest in but know it's a good game, I think it's going to be this football game right here. It's going to be on ABC or ESPN2 at 12:30 or at 2:30. I'm sorry, but JD's got the Mountaineers, West Virginia. I'm going to take TCU just because I feel very confident in Gary Patterson, and they've always played well against West Virginia. So I say the Horned Frogs give West Virginia their first loss of this year. Again, that's just a gut feeling, but I also feel like the defensive line at TCU is very good this year, and it's just not showing in their record because their offense isn't that consistent. So I think Kenny Hill's got to have a great game, but I just have a feeling the Horned Frogs are going to win. So, all right, our next game, number 19 Utah at UCLA. See, here's another tough one for me because it's Utah going into Los Angeles against UCLA. And Josh Rosen, who I'm hearing is one of the best NFL prospect quarterbacks in the country right now, which I call bull crap on that, with Deshaun Watson being number one, no doubt. I think he's going to get taken number one overall in this upcoming draft. But Josh Rosen, 1,900 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. See, I'm just not very impressed. When I've watched him play, I was not very impressed this year or last year. But what I am very impressed with is the story of Utah's running back, Shine. Armand Shine is a sophomore running back who quit the team because he wasn't having fun. After the second game this year, he quit the football team because he just was not having fun. And I think 5 games later, their star running back, Utah's running back, tears his ACL. And they call Armand and say, hey, we could really use you because they only had one other running back left on the roster. So Armand said, okay, I'll come back. And then he ends up having, against Oregon State, ends up having a huge game with 141 yards and a touchdown coming back from basically retirement of football, which is I think that's an incredible story. But I think Utah is one of those teams that is very overhyped. I think UCLA is too, so this one's hard for me to pick, but I'm picking Utah in this game just on the sole fact that they've proven themselves this year somewhat. I think that they've shown that they can hang around with some team, like some big teams like UCLA. And I'm not saying they can hang around like an Oklahoma or Alabama or even an LSU, but with the UCLA for sure. But JD has UCLA winning this game on the sole fact that it's home field advantage for the Bruins. But I don't think UCLA is they're not a huge home crowd advantage team because they're not a real rowdy stadium like Death Valley or West Virginia or Oklahoma or Alabama or Florida. See, they're not like that. They have those towns, college football is usually the number one thing on a Saturday. But in Los Angeles, no, they have so much more stuff they could do in Los Angeles. So college football is not a huge priority there. And if they go for the entertainment. They don't go to cheer on their team. So I'm taking Utah because I don't think home field advantage is anything in Los Angeles at all. So I say Utah by at least 6. So our next game to talk about is number 17 Arkansas at number 21 Auburn. And Arkansas is coming off of a huge win over Ole Miss. And it was a home game for the Razorbacks. And I was very impressed in how the Razorbacks played this week. The Razorbacks, they utilized the run and pass game so well against that Ole Miss defense that, I sit there and I think to myself that, stop making noise. I think it has a lot to do with. And the way they used Jared Cornelius in the pass game, then also in the run game because they hand the ball off to Cornelius at the 10-yard line and let him run in for a touchdown, I thought Brett Bielema something's starting to turn up in his head now. And that was a huge win for that program. Because if they would have lost that game, I think recruiting would have been down the drain for them. But that was such a huge win and a motivation lifter for the Razorbacks that with that game played, okay, well, you have Brandon Allen's little brother starting the quarterback for the Razorbacks again. And Allen has 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And then their running back, Roy Williams III, 785 yards, 9 touchdowns. And I'm sorry, that's I meant Raleigh. I remember I talked about it in my past podcasts. I love that name for football, Raleigh. But he had a huge game last week against Ole Miss, and I think he's going to carry that on into. Come on, look, go back I think since they're going into Jordan-Hare, it's going to be a tough one because again, this is one of the towns where college football rules all on Saturday. So JD has Arkansas winning this game, and I'm going to go with him on that. I think Jared Cornelius is going to have a big game with Austin Allen. Cornelius has 22 receptions, 448 yards, and 4 touchdowns just this year. And that's great because he's a junior. He's going to stay to his senior year because I've known him. I worked with him when I worked at his high school. He's a great kid, and he's one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in my life. So I'm definitely rooting for Arkansas in this football game, but also think they will win just because of the motivation that they got from beating Ole Miss. That was a huge, huge win for the Razorback agency community because I read something. I forgot where I read. I think I read it on Bleacher Report. Arkansas, when they were beating Ole Miss, after Jared Cornelius ran the ball in to the end zone from 10 yards out, they set off the thing that detects the earthquakes. They had the decimal, whatever. They basically had a small earthquake in Fayetteville. So it's not just a team that got a little motivational boost. It was the fans as well. So I'm taking Arkansas in a very good, not so low scoring, but not a lot of scoring either. I say Arkansas puts up about 28 points, and if they do that, they can win. So our next game now with we're almost done already. Man, it's going by fast. I guess you don't have 2 people talking this whole time. I guess it does go by pretty fast. But our next game is number 16. We already talked about that. Number 2, Ohio State at Penn State. Okay, Jay, why'd you put this on here to talk about? I don't know why you want me to talk about this. Number 2, Ohio State at Penn State. See, I would have rather talk about the Oregon State Washington. Okay, you know what? I'm going to talk about the Oregon State Washington one. Let's see. I'm pretty sure JD picked Ohio State to win. JD picked Ohio State to win, but so am I. Ohio State's very, very dominant, and they're definitely going to destroy Penn State. And I don't know why he put that on there. We're not going to talk about that. But we're not going to pick this one, but I think this Oregon State-Washington State game is going to be Oregon State-Washington game is going to be a lot closer than people think. Oregon State 2-4, but they're no one to count out. They never have been. They're always in the top 25 recruiting classes of every single year. They just don't have a lot of good coaching. But Washington is a dominant team this year, coming out of nowhere. With Chris Peterson definitely leading the way, recruiting these past couple of years, definitely killing it. But all right, so me and JD both picked Ohio State in that one. So our next game, we're going to go with number 23 Ole Miss at number 25 LSU. And as y'all know, I will be there live at this game. I'll be live tweeting everything going on, injuries, updates, anything going on in that game. But this is going to be a very tough game for me to pick. I work for a company that is the home of LSU sports, but this is what I've noticed about everything in Baton Rouge is Ed Orgeron has made football fun again in Baton Rouge. He really has. And with that being said, making it fun definitely helps the team and the environment a lot better. But with all this distraction we had in the past week, with the whole Florida game being rescheduled and ending up in LSU, and everyone throwing little pissy fits about every single thing that happened on both sides, and then people are starting to say that Denny Etling is the best quarterback in the SEC. I don't buy that one bit. I say Chad Kelly for Ole Miss is still the best quarterback in the SEC. And I'm going to say Ole Miss is going to win this football game. As much as I want LSU to win and how much I'm rooting for them, I just don't see it, and I really want to beat JD. So I'm going to pick Ole Miss beating LSU in Death Valley on the sole fact that Chad Kelly is having an amazing year, almost better than he did last year, with 14 touchdowns already and 1,800 yards. And but Fournette is going to play, but he's going to be all rusty and stuff. I don't think he's going to be as big as a factor everyone thinks he's going to be. And unless Orgeron really, I guess you can say, just gets his team ready, I think Arkansas is going to be a challenge for LSU. And since Arkansas beat Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss is out to prove something. Chad Kelly is one of those competitors, makes stupid decisions a lot off the field. But I'm going to take the Rebels in this game. Denny Etling's only completed 70 passes all year. He's 70 for 119, which is a good percentage. But you need to pass the ball more against these SEC defenses. And I don't see that happening this coming week. So JD has LSU. I got Ole Miss. So this week we're disagreeing a lot. And like I said, I'm going to whoop them in my predictions this week anyway. But finally, our last game that we're going to talk about, the best game of the entire week. This is going to be, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but a bloodbath. And this is the most anticipated game since week 2, I believe, with Texas A&M going into Alabama. Battle of the undefeateds. Battle for the SEC West to see who goes to the SEC championship game and who makes the playoff for the SEC, basically. So you have Trevor Knight, who has sparked this offense and even that defense and just the entire Texas A&M community, leading them into Tuscaloosa to go up against the one and only Nick Saban and his little companion, Jalen Hurts, the freshman quarterback. See, JD has Alabama winning this game. And I say that Trevor Knight has beaten Alabama before, and this is going to be another repeat of the Johnny Manziel game. I think Texas A&M wins on a late touchdown score, not an interception, but a late touchdown score. I say that this is really hard for me to do, but I'm saying Texas A&M just on the sole fact that Trevor Knight has his offense rolling on all cylinders. And this Alabama team has been known to start off slow. We'll see how that is this week because Nick Saban's going to have this team ready. But Texas A&M coming off a bye, I'm not going to go against them. Miles Jack is going to cause havoc for Jalen Hurts, even if he tries to escape the pocket. So give me Texas A&M in this football game. Trevor Knight, 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Then he's also the second leading rusher on the team. Then you have Reynolds with 448 yards, receiving 4 touchdowns. Then you have Jalen Hurts, who's a great game manager, I guess you can say, as a freshman. But I think the quarterback battle is definitely going to be won on the Texas A&M side. So I'm saying Giga Maggies and that Texas A&M is going to win this football game. So that's our predictions for this week. Again, I know it's a little different not having JD here, not being in the studio, but thank y'all for joining, and God bless.